Sean Combs. I mean, this might be a bit controversial, but in the same way, I think many people choose to look past the reality of what our country is, the standards that we now stand on. We can't ignore the reality of the history. I don't have anything negative to say about Sean Combs because my experience was not what the world has seen and how he's been, misrepresented. All of what you see, that is LaFace Records.
Right now, as you watch this, Sean Diddy Combs is sitting inside a federal correctional facility in New Jersey, convicted, sentenced, and stripped of everything he spent decades building. And yet, one of the biggest names in R&B just stood in front of the world and publicly defended him. Not quietly, not ambiguously, loudly and without hesitation. But here's the thing. What Usher said is only the surface of a story that runs much, much deeper. Because underneath that defense is a connection that links back to a 14-year-old kid sent to live in Diddy's mansion.
And I lived with Sean Puffy Combs for a year.
That's the crazy thing. Now, that was L.A. Reid's idea, right? We're sending you
New
over
York
to
City.
something called Puffy Flavor Camp.
There you go. I mean, I could. I actually stayed up longer than them.
And what kind, do you have money? What's going on?
I mean, I had like per diem.
Yeah.
I had like,
What
like
a
a living.
life.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
14 years old. You're a dad now. Would you ever send your kid to Puffy Camp?
Hell no.
A teenage pop star allegedly left alone with one of music's most powerful men, and a recent Oscar after-party where those two worlds collided in a way no one expected. Stay with us, because by the end of this, you're going to see how all of it connects. It started with a simple word association game. Forbes senior writer Jabari Young sat down with Usher for the Enterprise Zone, a Forbes interview series, and at some point during the conversation, he asked Usher to give one-word responses to the names of influential people in his life. When Diddy's name came up, the man currently serving a federal prison sentence, Usher didn't hesitate. His one word, legacy. Not complicated, not difficult. Legacy.
Sean Combs.
Sean Combs. Legacy.
Legacy.
But Usher didn't stop at one word. He went further, and what he said next is what sent shockwaves across the internet. He called Sean Combs a mentor. And not just any kind of mentor. He compared him to a really, really hard teacher. Someone he learned from in real time in ways he didn't even fully understand while it was happening. He said the knowledge he gained from watching Combs operate as a businessman shaped him before he even knew what business really meant.
Puff was a mentor, but he was like you have that really, really hard teacher, but you're watching something in real time. I think that the idea of the level of discipline that came with that time in business, especially in an era that was trying to prove itself culturally in hip hop. Now, you can't turn on the television and not see the influence of hip hop.
That's right.
But the people who actually made that appropriate and are the forefathers are people like Sean Combs.
Young referenced a 2015 interview where Usher had hinted that he managed to avoid certain negative situations while on tour. Situations that have since become very public in Diddy's legal case. Usher acknowledged what Young was saying, but pivoted immediately. He said, and this is his direct take, in many ways, I think certain people are prosecuted and maybe not recognized for the greatness that they offer. He added that his personal experience with Combs was not what the world has seen. That the version of Diddy he knew was someone who built culture, created opportunity, and served as a blueprint for black entrepreneurs. He made it clear he could not, in good conscience, ignore the contributions Combs made. So many people benefited from what he created, Usher said. And I acknowledge that. And that's why I see him as legacy. He put what he called respect on his name.
But I can't, with any sense of humanity, not recognize the valuable contributions that this man made for us as black entrepreneurs, for us as businessmen, for us as people who transition, culture and ideas into something that's tangible and becomes business. So many people benefited from what he created. And I acknowledge that. And that's why I see him as legacy.
A deliberate, intentional choice in a moment when most people in the industry have gone completely silent or distanced themselves entirely. But before you form an opinion on that, you have to understand where this relationship actually started and how young Usher was when it began. Long before Usher was defending Diddy in Forbes interviews, he was a teenager being groomed, in the professional sense of that word, for the music industry. Usher's career started young. He was signed to LaFace Records under L.A. Reid, who saw massive potential in the young singer from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And at some point, Reed made a decision that, in retrospect, raises a lot of questions. He arranged for teenage Usher to go live with Sean Combs. Usher was 14 years old. He moved into Diddy's home not as a guest, but as someone there to learn, to observe, to absorb, to see how the music industry operated from the inside of one of its most powerful figures. The idea was that Usher would witness the lifestyle firsthand. That was how it was framed at the time. A mentorship, an education, an opportunity most young artists would never get. But in 2016, Usher sat down with Howard Stern on The Howard Stern Show and pulled back the curtain just enough to make people uncomfortable. Stern asked him directly what it was like living there, and Usher chose his words carefully. But the implication of those words was impossible to miss. He described witnessing very curious things he said he couldn't fully understand at the time because of how young he was. He said it was pretty wild and crazy. He said he got a chance to see some things and didn't know if he could even indulge and understand what he was looking at. And then Stern asked him the question that cut through everything. He asked Usher whether he would ever send his own children to Puffy Flavor Camp, a reference to Diddy's infamous environment. Usher's answer? Hell no. 2 words. No elaboration. No backpedaling. Just a flat, immediate, definitive no. The same man who called Diddy a mentor and said legacy when asked to describe him also told the world, without hesitation, that he would never allow his own kids anywhere near what he experienced. That contradiction is something the internet has never forgotten.
You just can you stay up till 4 a.m. with them and party?
I mean, I could. I actually stayed up longer than them.
And what kind, do you have money? What's going on?
I mean, I had per diem. I had
what
like
a
living.
life.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
14 years old. You're a dad now. Would you ever send your kid to Puffy Camp?
Hell no.
See?
And it was about to become relevant again in a completely different way. When Usher signed Justin Bieber, the world saw it as a fairy tale story. A teenage kid from Stratford, Ontario, discovered through YouTube videos taken under the wing of one of R&B's biggest stars. It looked like a passing of the torch. Usher the mentor, Bieber the protege. And for a while, that's exactly how it was presented. What wasn't discussed as openly was the extended circle that came with that mentorship, specifically Sean Combs. Videos that resurfaced in 2004 and 2005 show a young Justin Bieber, 15 years old at the time, in the company of Diddy. The most striking of these is what some outlets have described as a 48-hour video. In the footage, Diddy is on camera alongside teenage Bieber, discussing what they have planned together. The details of what they were doing are left vague in the video itself. But what Diddy says on camera raised immediate red flags when people went back and watched it with fresh eyes. Diddy can be heard saying, on camera, that the two were going to go full buck crazy together. He called it a 15-year-old's dream. He made reference to meeting some girls. And then he looked at the camera and said that for the next 48 hours, Bieber was with him. None of that was hidden. It was all said openly, on film, as if it were perfectly normal.
You know, where we hanging out and what we doing, we can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. You know, I have been given custody of him. You know, he signed to Usher.
I'm signed to Usher.
I had legal guardianship of Usher when you know he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So and we gonna go full crazy.
I'm going crazy.
Crazy.
At the time, it was treated as a celebrity moment. Diddy hanging out with the hottest young artist in the world. Looking at it now, the reaction is very different. When Diddy's legal situation exploded in 2002 and his charges became public, Bieber's connection to him was immediately scrutinized. People wanted to know, how did a 15-year-old end up alone with Diddy? And where was Usher in all of this? In March 2005, a statement emerged through Bieber's representative that said clearly he was not among Combs' victims. The statement acknowledged that others were genuinely harmed and said that shifting focus to Bieber would detract from real victims' pursuit of justice. But what was notably absent was any public statement from Bieber himself. He said nothing. During the trial, he offered no comment, no social media post, nothing. That silence, combined with behavior his fans have described as increasingly erratic and emotionally troubled in recent months has kept speculation alive in a way that no press statement has been able to quiet. And then came the Oscar after-party, and everything broke open again. For nearly 3 years, Usher and Justin Bieber had not been seen publicly together. Since a 2022 outing at Coeur d'Alene Lake in Idaho, the two had maintained what appeared to be a quiet distance. No public appearances, no collaborations, no joint interviews. Whatever dynamic existed between them had played out entirely behind closed doors. And then, at an Oscar after-party hosted by Beyoncé and Jay-Z, they ended up in the same room. The guest list alone tells you how high-profile this event was. Taylor Swift was there, Michael B. Jordan, Ryan Coogler, Timothée Chalamet, Kylie Jenner, Austin Butler. This was not a small gathering. It was one of the most watched parties of the Hollywood Awards season. And in the middle of it, according to sources who spoke to TMZ, Usher and Bieber had a confrontation that was anything but warm. Multiple insiders described what happened as a heated exchange. According to some accounts, it escalated into a physical altercation, a fistfight. Other sources said it stopped short of that but was still explosive in the context of where it happened and who was watching. What multiple accounts do agree on is the specific detail that Usher approached Bieber with. In their words, energy and anger. Whatever was said between them, it did not start calm. The cause of the confrontation has not been confirmed by either party. Neither Usher nor Bieber has publicly addressed it. But the timing, coming in the wake of Diddy's conviction, the resurfaced videos, and years of speculation, sent the internet into overdrive.
Usher and Justin Bieber got into it at an Oscars after-party hosted by Beyoncé and Jay-Z, and TMZ has learned things got heated. Sources connected to Justin tell TMZ Usher approached him at the party with what they described as energy and anger, and the two got into a heated exchange. The sources say although there was no physical contact, it was intense.
Comment sections filled up within hours. One person wrote, "It's probably because Usher introduced Bieber to Diddy when he was a kid." Another, "I bet it had something to do with Diddy." A third commenter posed what many were already thinking. "Wonder if it went something like, 'You knew about Puff and still left me alone at his crib?'" That last comment alone gathered thousands of likes. The silence from both camps has only deepened the questions. And while the personal drama between them was dominating headlines, someone else was watching the whole situation and making sure the world didn't forget the bigger picture. If there is one person who has never needed an invitation to weigh in on anything related to Diddy, it is 50 Cent. Their feud stretches back decades, and 50 has never once pretended to be neutral about Sean Combs. When the legal case erupted, 50 didn't slow down. He accelerated. His Instagram became a running commentary on every new development, every court filing, every allegation. And when new reports emerged suggesting that an escort service owner had been questioned in court about alleged interactions involving Diddy, including claims about male escorts and ongoing investigative threads, 50 took to Instagram immediately. His response was characteristically unfiltered and explicit, referencing the allegations directly in the blunt language he's become known for online. But 50 didn't limit himself to social media reactions. He went much bigger. In late 2000-2005, he partnered with Netflix to produce a full docuseries titled Sean Combs: The Reckoning. The series generated massive numbers upon release, reportedly pulling in tens of millions of views and reigniting public conversation about the case at a moment when media attention was beginning to drift. It became one of the most talked about true crime projects of the year, drawing viewers who had followed the case since the beginning and millions of new ones who were encountering the full scope of the allegations for the first time. But the docuseries didn't come without complications. Shortly after its release, 50 Cent and Netflix were hit with a lawsuit filed by a former participant, a person who had appeared in the project and alleged that their interview had been edited in a way that fundamentally misrepresented what they said. The lawsuit claimed that portions of their testimony had been omitted or altered, including statements about alleged trafficking, and argued that the final cut of the documentary shaped a narrative that was inaccurate. The plaintiff also alleged that 50 Cent's personal history with Diddy influenced how the material was framed, that this was not just journalism, but a continuation of a decades-long personal feud being waged through the medium of documentary film.
Again, it's the #1 documentary in all of the world.
I want to know how the filmmakers obtained the raw footage that Diddy and his crew...
50 won't say.
Yeah.
He will not say where he got it.
That's the one part where I think potentially Diddy could have a claim of some sort of theft of intellectual property, because if he had people shooting him, what may have have happened is that he paid those people with the cameras, or was going to pay those people with the cameras.
He was recording a documentary.
Yeah.
The case is ongoing, and so is the larger legal saga it orbits. Sean Combs is currently incarcerated at FCI Fort Dix, a federal correctional institution in New Jersey. He was transferred there last fall from New York's Metropolitan Detention Center. And as of now, Federal Bureau of Prisons records reflect a projected release date of April 25th, 2028. That date has already been revised multiple times. His original release had been scheduled for May 2008, then moved to June. And it's now been adjusted earlier to April. For someone who once controlled the music industry from a position of near untouchable power, the reduction of his life to a federal release date is jarring by any measure. Shortly after arriving at Fort Dix, rumors began circulating that Diddy had violated prison rules. His representative pushed back firmly. He has not violated any prison rules, the spokesperson said. His sobriety and self-discipline are priorities, and he is taking them seriously. Whether those denials fully silence the speculation is another matter. Rumors about his prison behavior have continued to circulate on social media, though none have been substantiated with confirmed reporting. At his sentencing, Diddy addressed the court directly in a moment that many observers found striking for its tone. "I am not this larger-than-life person," he told the judge. "I am just a human being." He expressed regret and said he had been humbled and broken to my core. The man who once described himself as a visionary, a mogul, a cultural architect, reduced by his own words to someone asking a courtroom to see him as simply human. Beyond the prison sentence itself, Combs will also face 5 years of supervised release once he completes his term. But whether he actually serves that full term is now very much in question. Diddy's legal team has made clear they have no intention of accepting the current sentence as final. In a newly filed appeal, his attorneys are challenging the 50-month sentence on what they describe as fundamental grounds of fairness. Their core argument is this: the judge who sentenced Combs relied on allegations and conduct tied to charges that the jury had already rejected. Specifically, the acquitted counts related to sex trafficking and racketeering, the most serious charges in the original indictment. Diddy was found not guilty on those charges. His lawyers argue that using acquitted conduct to increase the severity of a sentence is a practice that is increasingly being criticized within the legal community, and that doing so in this case amounted to punishing their client twice for the same allegations. The language in the appeal filing is notably aggressive. Diddy's lawyers called the sentence a perversion of justice. They argue the punishment went far beyond what is typically imposed for the 2 prostitution-related charges he was actually convicted on, and they are now asking an appeals court to intervene. Their requests are stark: immediate release and a judgment of acquittal, or alternatively, a full resentencing by a new judge who has not been influenced by the weight of the original proceedings. Legal experts are divided on whether the appeal has a realistic chance of success, but the filing itself is a signal that this case is nowhere near its conclusion. Adding another layer of uncertainty, there are reports, unconfirmed as of now, that Diddy could face additional state-level criminal charges as investigators continue examining aspects of the broader case. No new charges have been formally announced, but the fact that state authorities are reportedly still circling means the legal exposure hasn't fully collapsed with the federal conviction. For Combs and his team, every week brings a new variable. For the public watching from the outside, the story keeps moving, and at the center of it, always, are the questions about who knew what and when. So here is where we land. Usher stood in front of a camera in a Forbes interview and called Sean Combs' legacy. He said his experience was not what the world has seen. He said he puts respect on his name. And yet, in 2016, when Howard Stern asked him plainly if he would ever send his own children into the world he himself lived in at 14, the answer was an immediate, unequivocal no. That contradiction has never been reconciled publicly. Usher has never been asked to explain it directly, and he has not volunteered to. Justin Bieber has said nothing. His representative released a carefully worded statement distancing him from the victim narrative, but Bieber himself has not spoken. No interview, no explanation, no confrontation of the timeline that put him, at 15 years old, in a 48-hour situation that Diddy described on camera. His behavior in recent months has worried fans who have watched someone who once seemed invincible look increasingly fragile. Whether that fragility is connected to any of this is something only Bieber knows. Diddy is appealing. His lawyers are calling his sentence unjust. New allegations keep surfacing. 50 Cent keeps amplifying. The story has no clean ending, not yet. And maybe the most uncomfortable question isn't about Diddy at all. It's about the system that surrounded him. The managers who made decisions. The mentors who opened doors. The adults in rooms full of teenagers who looked the other way or told themselves it was normal, because the people closest to power are often the last ones to speak up. And sometimes by the time they do, the silence itself has already said everything. Let us know your thoughts in comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like this video to support the channel, subscribe to Holly Hype TV for the latest updates, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Until next time, peace out.